Support for Steppin Out comes in part from the Kristovich family in honor of Mary Lou and Bill Kristovich. This program is sponsored in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support the arts and culture in the greater New Orleans area.
I'm Peggy Scott Laborde, and welcome to Steppin Out, with updates from the local restaurant, arts, and entertainment scenes. Joining me, Poppy Tooker, host of Louisiana Eats on WWNO Radio. Hey, Miss Poppy. Good to see you.
Hi, Peg.
Hi there. Ian McNulty, food writer for the Times-Picayune, New Orleans Advocate. Hi, Ian. Hello there.
Hey, Peggy.
Hi, Doug MacCash, who covers the city's arts and culture scenes also for the Times-Picayune, New Orleans Advocate. Hello, Doug.
Hello.
And Alan Smason of theatercriticism.com and the Crescent City Jewish News. Hello, Mr. Allen.
Glad to be here.
Hey. Poppy, a good deal for local dining patrons.
A good deal that also is doing good. This is a new program called Build a Poor Boy, Feed a Community. And this is coming to us from our friends at Creole Cuisine Restaurant Concepts. Now, Peggy, where can you get a $6 poor boy? That's the price of these poor boys. And for every one purchased, $1 goes to the Second Harvest Food Bank, and the donations are all matched by Tabasco. And this bargain is helped make possible with donated bread from Leidenheimers. This is just such a deal. $6, you get a shrimp remoulade poor boy from Broussard's, fried fish from Maspero's, roast beef from Ernst Cafe, shrimp and oyster at the Royal House downtown, and meatball poor boys from Tommy's. So there's 5 different choices, 5 of the Creole Concepts restaurants, and you get your poor boy passport that they stamp when you eat your poor boy. This is either to dine in or take out, and if you eat all 5 poor boys, you get a $100 gift certificate to use at any Creole Cuisine restaurant. So bravo to Marv Amari and his team for opening their newest restaurant, the Boulevard Bistro, and for putting on this really fantastic fundraising.
Absolutely. That is such a clever idea, Poppy. It really
Isn't it?
And
all of that and a new restaurant, too.
Yes. He's been busy in these challenging times. And some techno stuff going on with some local restaurants, huh?
Yeah, I feel like every time I come on and talk with you, Peggy, I'm talking about what's new or different for not just on the menus, but the way that restaurants are operating. And one of the things that you may see if you start venturing out to restaurants now are something called QR codes. They're on the menus. Sometimes they're by the front doors. You know, they're these boxy squares that just look like some kind of techie code, right? And the truth is they've been popular in different industries for a long time. However, they just had not made inroads into the restaurant business until now. So what are these things? Basically, it's like the barcode on any product you would pick up at the store. But in this case, you're using your cell phone to access it, and it's taking you to a website. It just takes you to a website that the restaurant sets up to show you its menu, its drinks list, sometimes its reservations page in advance. In some cases, even a way to settle up the bill at the end. And this, of course, is all part of the effort to reduce contact between people as the restaurant dining rooms get rolling again. So think about it like this. It puts your menu on your phone. You're not handling the menu. The waiter is not giving you the traditional menu, but you're seeing the restaurant's offerings just on the phone that you brought in there. Some restaurants I've seen, they have this posted at the front door so you can scan it right away and you're walking to your table with the menu on your phone. I've actually heard some feedback from people who did not think that they would like this. They thought it would feel a little, just a little too cold, a little too techy in their warm restaurant environment. But they're finding that it's reassuring right now. And also it solves the problem of not being able to read the menus. How many times do you see people whipping out their phones to flash a little more light on the menus in a darker restaurant? Yeah. And so right now.
And the fine print too. It's a little tiny sometimes.
That's right.
Now,
That's
Jesse
right. Yeah, it
Vega.
wasn't that long ago. Desi Vega's one. Yeah, they have them right there on the tabletops.
Okay.
Some restaurants actually have them embedded into the tables as permanent parts of the table, so you just scan it right there. So it's interesting technology. I think there was some resistance in the restaurant industry for a long time for adopting it, but to get open now, people are trying out different things, and turns out some customers are really liking it.
I certainly would. Thank you so much. And Doug, some entertainment online made possible by local, shall we say, performance artists?
Yes. The Flossin Possum is Flossin is a dance that you swing your hips from side to side, you make fists at the ends of your stiff arms, and you go from side to side, which I can't do. Possums, of course, are animals that come out at night. They look like big rats with kangaroo pouches and Guy Fieri hair. Some people love them. Some people find them creepy. One person who really, really loves them is Lady Walker. Lady Walker is a busy photographer who shoots weddings and pet portraits. At least she's usually busy. During COVID-19, of course, her business has dried up. So she found herself with time on her hands and has used her love of possums to produce these wonderful, crazy videos. She has a 2019 Mardi Gras possum costume that she slips into, takes herself out on the streets and dances in front of local landmarks in neighborhoods across town. Now, on the one hand, it's completely absurd, completely ridiculous. And on the other hand, magically, she's managed to really produce a wonderful symbol of our moment with the coronavirus quarantine, because here you have what should be this very shy animal that doesn't show itself, and it's out dancing with abandon in the landscape that's otherwise completely empty. And I think it's brilliant, and they're irresistible. I promise you, they'll put a smile on your face.
You know what? I have to tell you, it put a smile on my face. It really did. And it's so funny because you can be in the middle of New Orleans and still see live possums. So that particular costume does resonate. Thank you, Doug. And moving back over to Alan. Alan, the local Big Easy Awards, not happening yet, huh?
Well, not happening yet. Of course, as we all know, the Big Easy Awards were supposed to be in April, and they were rescheduled to June at the Higgins Hotel. And then, of course, we just got the announcement recently that they're going to be pushed back to September. Now, whether or not this will be an actual event where everyone will gather as they had hoped, or whether or not this is going to be a virtual event, they're still trying to work all of those details out. But I have to tell you that as these things go on longer and longer, we need to still keep in mind that these are the awards for 2019. We're getting close to the end of or at least the middle now of 2020. So we have to make a decision on what we're going to do with that. And again, this was the first time that all the music, the dance, the theater, and the awards that we have for, I'm trying to remember the other one, the classical arts, all of those would all be together. So keep in mind that they'll be hopefully done in September now. Now, a recap of Give NOLA Day. This was a very important fundraising cause for our theater community. I have to tell you that Le Petit Theater raised $34,000, which puts them at the top of the theater heap in town, even though Junebug Productions came up at 125 with about $13,000. That's a lot of money that they need to support themselves. I will tell you that Rivertown Theaters got a prize for having the most unique donors, I think the 5th most unique donors in the small category of organizations that are in the Give NOLA Day. And if those of you were keeping track, the Rivertown and Summer Lyric cabaret shows that they had, Rivertown actually did a little bit better, but not that much better. I think Rivertown brought in about $11,000, and Summer Lyric brought in around $10,000. Now, of course, due to the ongoing unrest in the nation, we have to say that what happened locally was the Doll's House, the Crescent City Stage, had planned on doing it this past Monday. They have also taken a little bit of a hiatus. They're going to reschedule that for June the 15th. And also a little bit of a shout out, Chita Rivera. She is 88 now, but back when she was 80, they had a celebration of hers that was a broadcast for Broadway Cares Equity Fight AIDS. And guess what? It raised another $100,000 this week. For everybody who logged on. Apparently, Chita Rivera at 88 still has it. And speaking of Broadway, of course, the Broadway On Demand show that we had scheduled was also a casualty of the situation that we were talking about with cancellation. So they're not going to go on, as well as the drama league that they had planned on having announcements for the awards that they were going to have for the Drama Desk Association. So that's going to be held up as well. That's pretty much it for right now.
Okay, thank you very much. Back to you a little bit later. And, you know, what began as the National D-Day Museum in New Orleans 20 years ago tomorrow is now the official National World War II Museum, and is one of the major museums in the country. Marcia Kavanaugh reminds us of how it all began.
It's world-renowned, the National World War II Museum in downtown New Orleans. Its 6-acre campus, the site of 5 historical exhibition buildings and a hotel, all dedicated to the mission of remembering the heroism and sacrifices of those who fought to keep us free during World War II. But its origins began with a dream on a smaller scale.
Fateful afternoon. We cooked up a lot of things to do in his backyard, and we had probably way more confidence than we should have had about our ability to do things together.
Museum co-founder and retired University of New Orleans history professor and college dean, Dr. Nick Mueller, remembers the evening his fellow UNO history professor and good friend, the late Dr. Stephen Ambrose, revealed his vision of a place for the World War II D-Day veteran oral histories that Ambrose had collected, and roped Mueller, who had been charged with developing a research center at UNO, into the plan.
So Ambrose lived closer to campus, so I'd go by and drink cheap sherry with him every afternoon at 5. And I won't forget it because it just kind of seared in my memory. I mean, I came in and there was a little bit more determination about it. I mean, he had something on his mind. He sit down, have a drink. So I could see this glass of sherry coming through the haze at me. I got an idea, we're going to do something here. So it's going to really be big. I've got 1,000 of these oral histories now. Some of these guys send artifacts that are connected to the stories on their tapes. And they got to be preserved. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a D-Day museum in your research park. And I said, well, Steve, that's the best idea you ever had. I was really excited about it. And he says, okay, that's settled. No, we're going to do it. And I said, yes. So he says, good. Now, it'll only cost $1 million. And I said, oh, Steve, you're so naive about these things. It's going to be at least $4 million. You know, I know more about these things than you do. And he said, well, we want to do it in 4 years.
10 years and more than $20 million later, Drs. Ambrose and Mueller proudly cut the ribbon to the National D-Day Museum, opening it to visitors on June 6, 2000, the 56th anniversary of the Normandy invasion. Dr. Ambrose's idea of a small D-Day museum on the UNO lakefront campus shifted to a downtown New Orleans site, drawing on the Crescent City connection of native son Andrew Higgins, whose industry made the landing craft used on D-Day, and who General Dwight Eisenhower credited as the man who won the war. Now 20 years old, the museum is welcoming visitors after a 2-month COVID lockdown. It resumes its education mission to help us remember the bravery of those who fought for freedom, a world-class dream realized through the dedication and friendship of 2 professors of history from a New Orleans public university.
I want people to understand their history, and that history matters to our future as Americans. And I want them to understand the values of those 18-year-olds and 20-year-olds who fought for their freedom and why they fought. Now, let me just say, despite the fact that we had a very small ambition at that time, and I would say if Steve were sitting here today, he would say the same thing I did. We had a very small vision for a story that was the biggest story of the 20th century for America and for the world. And we both knew of the consequences of having not won that war. We both knew as historians how big a story it was.
The museum is now open daily from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Go to national www.museum.org and click on for tickets. And I am so glad, Poppy, to hear that, those drag queen brunches, we just can't get enough of them.
Well, can you believe this? Drag Queen Brunch is coming back next Saturday. Now, this is going to be a Poppy's Pop-Up drag brunch in place. So it's happening via Zoom. It's going to benefit Noki. We're going to have performances by Laveau Contraire, Debbie with a D, and there's going to be a cooking class involved because my friend Jared Zarang is going to be making his baked eggs with tasso and, listen, crackling biscuits with Steen's cane syrup butter. And both of those recipes are from the Drag Queen Brunch cookbook. Tickets are just $20, and the proceeds all go to Noki. So you just go to Noki, NOCHI.org to sign up. It's going to be fun.
Thank you so much, Poppy. Back over to Ian. Ian, one of my favorite places is the Crescent City Steak House, and they're back open with the booths.
The booths, yes. You know, we've talked previously in the show about new technology tools helping people out during the reopenings. Well, here's an example at Crescent City Steakhouse of one of the most vintage features here that is suddenly recast for the times without doing a single thing to them. I think if you say Crescent City Steakhouse, a lot of people in this town say, "Oh, great steaks." How about those booths? These booths are, for the uninitiated, they function like tiny private dining rooms. There's enough room for one table, 4 chairs, and a lot of rumors and intrigue about what people might want to do in a tiny private dining room once you draw the curtains and you're completely cut off from public view in the dining room. Well, these things go back to the 1930s at least. They go back to at least the start of Crescent City Steaks in 1934. And they follow a tradition that was once much more common around American dining landscape for these private booths. Well, lo and behold, what they offer for practical purposes, not for anything nefarious, but for practical purposes, is precisely what a lot of restaurants are trying to figure out right now as they reopen with limitations on how closely they can put tables and minimum distancing and occupancy limits that are upon them. An interesting caveat to the cities and the states' rules right now are that booths can be side by side. You can sit people in booths side by side if they extend over the average height of a seated patron. So with Crescent City, you're covered. These are their own chambers with their own even curtains that close around them. And now I had a really nice dinner there. I can tell you the crew is following all the precautions they're supposed to, face masks, and they're wearing gloves, and they bring you your drinks and your steaks. But when that sizzling steak starts crackling right outside of your curtained booth, and maybe you're on your second old-fashioned and you're finally in some good company sitting across the table with someone for dinner at long last, it feels like old times again, that's for sure.
That's just what we want to feel.
Exactly. New considerations these days for sure. But Crescent City Steak shows some of our vintage restaurants are up for the task.
Thank you, and I can't wait to go back. Over to Doug again for another performance artist, so to speak.
Yes, indeed. Trixie Minx is probably New Orleans' best known burlesque artist. Ordinarily, she would be fan dancing for audiences 3 or 4 times a week. She's very successful. But of course, with COVID-19, those audiences dried up. I think that Trixie would be the first to tell you that she's not very comfortable with the solitude and lack of activity these days. In fact, she would probably tell you that it has driven her nuts, and so she's out making comedy videos around about her house, which she shares on YouTube, and we have one here for you to check out.
I've lost my mind! That's the dog. This is me. Good dog! Glamour dog! Glamour dog! Look at this dog doing his bit. Yeah, kick to side side. Kick. Good dog. Good dog. Good dog. We all kick it up in here. Jazz hands. Jazz hands. Zeus is a good boy. Funky peacock. Funky peacock. Now we do the funky peacock. I am just acting like a fool today, and I cannot stop, and I don't want to stop. I'm sorry if I have bored you. I just need to work that out of my system. Sometimes I just gotta be free!
Doug, one thing, I did check out some of those videos, and just so everybody knows, it's very PG, okay? It's pretty PG, I should say.
Yes.
There's no nudity involved, okay? But no, she's very talented, and she is quite the businesswoman, too. And they, I noticed on her Facebook page, they have some burlesque shows that you can, like a performance, you can pay a fee and watch. So, pretty smart, don't you think?
Oh, I think so. She's very successful, and I predict a future career with a little comedy, a little more comedy involved. She's very good at it.
She is. Thank you so much. Back to Alan. Alan.
Well, I wanted to let everybody know about NOLA Theater Talk, the shows this week. Right after Steppin Out tonight, we have Janet Shea as our special guest. And, of course, I'm mindful that Janet was once married to one of the predecessors in this very chair for theater criticism. Of course, I'm talking about David Cuthbert. No, I mean, of course, Al Shea. And I'm delighted to honor her, pay homage to her. And it's a unique opportunity, have a great opportunity, if you will, to talk with her. Also, this past week, we had Michael McKelvey. We have another set of Michaels coming up. Michael Mitchell, the head of New Orleans Theater Association, will be on, as well as Michael Newcomer, who will speak about actors' equity and about the NOLA contract. We'll talk about that. Also, some rather exciting news. Again, you can see all of this on the Facebook group that we have, the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, and also on theatercriticism.com's Facebook page. But Bob Eads Jr. And Harold Gervais are going to be starring in a reading of Brick by John Broder. Of course, it's based on a character from Tennessee Williams' A Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. And here's a photo that I have, as a matter of fact, from the original production, which starred Bob Eads again in the same role with Manuel Ponce. Bob, again, will be reprising that same original role. And in case you missed it, this past week, Kelly O'Hara kicked off the Seth Rudetsky concerts. And you have to understand what we're doing here with Steppin Out is sort of the similar sort of situation. Kelly O'Hara was singing in the studio way far away in her home, and Seth was playing the piano. This is very difficult. Technically, this is a very difficult thing to pull off, and they do it fantastic. Jeremy Jordan is coming up on the 14th of June. And, of course, a week later, it's going to be Jesse Mueller, who we remember from Beautiful and also Waitress. So we'll look forward to that as well. That's about it for right now, Peggy.
Thank you so much, Alan. Now time for our picks of the week. Poppy.
What good news. This weekend, Brennan's is popping up at Brennan's just for the weekend. Tomorrow and Sunday, you can have breakfast between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m., dinner from 6 p.m. till 9 p.m. Brennan's Restaurant.
Great. Ian.
I was hankering for a real traditional taqueria lately, and Chilango's Seafood did not disappoint. They've got two locations now, the original on Williams Boulevard in Kenner, and the newer one on Carrollton Avenue in Carrollton. Go on a Tuesday, and it's $1 taco, really good Taco Tuesday deal, but anytime you go there, it's a really good bargain and real traditional Mexican taqueria fare.
All right, thank you. Doug.
Well, the Contemporary Art Center has reopened on Camp Street at least through June 14th with a pair of shows by Micheline Thomas and Meg Turner. Admission is free. And here's an interesting thing. As nonprofits are struggling to make ends meet, the Contemporary Art Center in honor of George Floyd, have donated $10,000 to Black-led organizations battling mass incarceration.
All right, thank you. Alan.
Well, the Metropolitan Opera, unfortunately, this week announced that they are going to postpone their season until December. But the nightly streams are free for the ones they announce. If not, you have to buy a subscription. But the one that's coming up that is very special this Sunday night, they're bringing back Renee Fleming and Thomas Hampson in Massenet's Thais, which I highly recommend.
All right, thank you so
I'll see
much.
you at the theater.
All right, and I'm so glad to hear that the zoo is opening again next week. Very good news. Thank you all very much, and thank you all for watching. Goodbye.
This program is sponsored in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support the arts and culture in the greater New Orleans area. Support for Steppin Out comes in part from the Christovich family in honor of Mary Lou and Bill Christovich.